Being a good GM requires consistency, endless preparation, and player appreciation. This is Confessions of a Frustrated Game Master.
Hello, welcome to Confessions of a Frustrated Game Master. I am Robert, the narrator, and thank you for joining me for another in-car edition of Confessions of a Frustrated Game Master. Well, this is the time of year where you're moving around a lot and you have a lot of things going on. So I have some topics that I want to cover, and I just have to get the videos in whenever and wherever I can. So another car edition of Confessions of a Frustrated Game Master. Why my channel is so popular is because of my gorgeous torso, and I'm sorry that I'm denying you the opportunity to gaze upon my beautiful torso. But anyway, so this is kind of going to be a second and last video in a mini series, I guess you could say. I did a video a couple of videos back called Embarrassment of Riches. What was it? Playstyle? Yeah, Playstyle Embarrassment of Riches. And what that video talked about was the mini campaign that I was running for a couple of buddies from online, David, Dell, and Jason, and how I was blown away by the fact that all of us had the same intentions for play and the same play style. But there was a second reason why I really enjoyed the experience of running my tabletop role-playing game, Peace the RPG, for those guys. But the second reason was because these guys were really bought in. As I said during my last video, which was a recap of the entire mini campaign, I really love the fact that those guys were bought into the game and bought into the setting. When I asked them questions about their characters, they would respond quoting information about the setting and how that informed their character and their character's place in the world. And it was information that I hadn't even shared with them about the setting. So they clearly were doing their jobs as players. They were immersed in the world. They were interested in in what was going on in the world and wanted to make sure that they found a place in the world to draw their character from. And under all normal circumstances, best practices, that is how players should always approach the game that they're playing. Now, I would like to say that the reason that this happened is because I have made it super easy for players to suss out their character's place in the world. But the truth is, I think that's true, but the bottom line is that these guys still made the effort and wanted to do their part as players. And as a frustrated game master, that is one thing that is really important to me and that I am pretty much unwavering about, is that I have a job as a game master. My job is to be fair, and my job is to accurately portray everything that is not the player characters. And I ask unabashedly and unapologetically, I ask the players to do everything that they are responsible to do, to make interesting characters, to pay attention, and to try to immerse themselves in the world. And I don't apologize. I think that that is only fair. But though these guys are amazing, I made a point of making sure that Peace gave players a really super easy way to figure out their character's place in the world, because The game, the basic edition of the game doesn't have a 20-page write-up of the entire history of the world. The core rulebook will not have that. Basically, what I do is I have a 2-page calendar that gives bullet points, basically, of the history of the world. And then all of the major nations and cultures in the world have a 1-page write-up. And at the top of that 1-page write-up is the general concepts that drive the government or the peoples of that setting. Things like wield unmatched military might, or protect the innocent, or take advantage of the weak, are in a sentence at the top of the description of each major nation or culture in the world. So if a player wanted to figure out, for example, where their character came from, they could look at the 6 or 7 major nations in the world, read the top sentence, and get a fantastic idea of what the attitudes and goals or beliefs of individuals from that part of the world are. Quick, simple, and easy. And one thing that will help players buy in, I think, is if role-playing games made it that easy for players to find their place in the world or in the setting. Excuse me. And I would recommend that. That doesn't mean that you can't do a 20, 25, 30, 35 page detailed write-up of your world for like some role-playing games do, but it means that there should be a shorthand, easy way, an easy description that would allow a player who isn't interested in reading all of that material, for instance, I'm not, to figure out who their character is with quick, concise descriptions. And that will only help players buy in to what you're doing. And as I mentioned in the recap video of the mini campaign that I ran for the guys, when players say that they couldn't buy in, or when a GM complains that their players are not bought in, a lot of people say, well, what are you doing, GM? What are you doing wrong that's preventing your players from buying in? And I guess I kind of take exception to that, because, you know, my feeling is if I'm not bringing it as a game master, why are you at my table? You know, and if I'm not bringing it, if I'm falling short of your expectations for you to buy into my game, what are you doing as a player to encourage it? Because something else I believe as a frustrated game master is I am not here to entertain you. Tabletop role-playing games are a cooperative endeavor. It is my job to do my job. It is your job as a player to do your job. And tabletop role-playing games is supposed to be a collaboration. So I don't have a problem with picking up the slack sometimes for the player to make the game work. And players shouldn't sit back and say, entertain me, Dungeon Master. When the Dungeon Master is slipping, the player should do whatever they can on with their part to make the game enjoyable, so they can buy in. So it's a two-way street. And sometimes I feel like the idea is what the GM, what are you doing wrong, GM? But I think it's everybody's job to buy in. And if someone is just not feeling it, my question always is, you know, at this point, and as long as I've been in the hobby, why are you at the table if you're not interested in what's going on? But I don't really want to be, and I don't want to sound like a negative Ned about this, but, you know, if everything was always optimal, I guess there would be no need for advice channels or discussions like this if everything was always optimal. So I don't want to sound like a negative Ned, but the truth is that there are players out there and game masters and tables that struggle with these issues. And that's the reason that I talk about them. I don't want to be negative, and obviously I don't want to always sound like things are negative, because I just came away from an amazing experience. That's why I'm doing this video, is because of the amazing experience that I've had. But yeah, so I don't want to always sound negative, but I'm pretty sure folks could use the advice. So one thing that will allow players to buy in is if role-playing games facilitated quick and easy understanding of the material. Another way another thing that will assist with buy-in is if everybody at the table took responsibility for the game being fun, and if no one pointed to the other person, and no player said, well, GM, you're the GM, it's your job to entertain me. And if the GM says, I am God, I am the only person responsible for the game being fun, like it or not, if the GM says, I will ask you guys to also help me make the game fun, if it's a more collaborative effort, I think you could get more player buy-in all the way around. Any of the other advice that I could give is the advice that helps with all aspects of there being a disconnect at the table. So, you know, session 0, talk to your players, listen to your players. That advice is ubiquitous. Whenever you're talking about there being a disconnect at the table, player buy-in included, that's the advice that you always get and you can refer to. So I won't even touch on that advice. But yeah, those little pieces that I gave you are really important, and I can't reiterate enough how enjoyable that 3 session mini campaign was. It really was super enjoyable. And I love the fact that these guys were bought in. I feel like they are the type of players who were going to do that anyway, but it definitely did not hurt that the game is designed in a way to facilitate buy-in, with allowing the players to easily reference some of the main features of the setting. So thanks for checking out this video. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever and whenever you are watching this video. And please enjoy your holidays. Thank you.